Trump doesn't care about polls anymore, and why would he? He has no more elections and doesn't care about the GOP. Hitler was also an anti-war candidate, and a lot of policies were initially unpopular. No, Trump cares about popularity. You're wrong about that. I think he is, for selfish reasons, for narcissistic reasons, but reasons nonetheless, Donald Trump absolutely cares about being popular. All right, let's get back to Arab Americans in Michigan react to President Trump.
United States, a community which helped Trump carry the critical swing state. He won 42% of the vote in Dearborn versus Vice President Harris with 36% and Jill Stein with 18%. In 2020, Biden handily carried the city with 69%. Faye Nimmer voted for Trump in 2024 out of frustration. His administration supported Israel. Now, she is troubled by the president's proposal to move Palestinians out of Gaza.
I mean, it's very concerning and it's infuriating.
Personal feelings, you're infuriated, but standing by your decision for now to have voted for Trump.
Correct.
And what would move that needle for you to say, you know what, I made a mistake?
Palestine is the red line for this community.
Nimmer says she suspects Trump is bluffing and is using his proposal as some sort of negotiating tactic. That's the same sentiment shared by Amar Zar.
First, this is clearly not going to happen, right?
And real estate broker Ali Alfarajala.
A lot of people are calling me and texting me saying, hey, how did your vote work out? How was that third party vote?
Both were so-called protest voters. Neither supported Trump or Harris. Are there any sort of second thoughts now about having supported a third-party candidate?
Absolutely not. And I'll still do it again and again and again.
I didn't vote for Trump. So a protest vote, I don't know. I would say it was a targeted vote of conscience to say that the children of Gaza have to mean something. Their death has to mean something.
And while Arab Americans here were divided in the past, going forward, one point is uniting them: opposition to Trump's proposal to move Palestinians out of Gaza.
The community will be unified. I will tell you this. The Palestinian people would rather die and live in a demolition site than to be ethnically cleansed and being sent out of Gaza to Egypt or Jordan.
So again, Anderson, after spending some time here in the Arab American community, you really get a sense that they feel like they've been let down by both Republicans and Democrats. Certainly, there's a great deal of frustration after hearing what Trump is proposing, but there's also a feeling that had Harris been elected, had it been a Harris administration, the feeling here is that Palestinians would still be suffering. Anderson?
Just Carol, thanks very much. And Dearborn with me now. Put some numbers to the story. CNN senior data reporter Harry Anton. Generally speaking, has there been much an appetite in the U.S. for to get involved in rebuilding Gaza?
No, there has not been. Look, we have no new polling since last night, right? Polling works fast. It doesn't work that fast. But in the polling that we had prior, or that was taken towards the middle end of last year, what we saw was the overwhelming majority of Americans opposed the idea that the United States should take a lead role in reconstructing Gaza. You can see it right there, 57% opposed, just 37% support. And what I should note is the support was lowest among Trump's own base of Republicans. So the idea that this is going to sell among the American people at large or the Republican base, simply put, he definitely wasn't looking at the polls before he went out there and made a statement that was heard around the world because of how crazy it sounded to most people.
How did Palestinians view President Trump during his first administration?
Yeah, so we're talking about Americans, right? But at the end of the day, the Gaza Strip is filled with Palestinians, right? So the question is, how did Palestinians feel about Donald Trump during his first term? And the bottom line is they absolutely disapproved of his leadership. I mean, you rarely see numbers like this. Look at this. 78% during his first term disapproved of his leadership. Just 10% approved of it. And I even drilled down a little bit more because I love going into those crosstabs. And what I found was approval, or at least disapproval among Gazans, was even higher. The disapproval among Gazans was...
In my opinion, we owe it to the Palestinians to pay for rebuilding Palestine to the last penny. I agree. Except Trump doesn't want to rebuild Palestine. He wants to ethnically displace it first and then build condominiums on what is the Gaza Strip. It's the worst of both worlds.
It's even higher than it was among Palestinians overall. So simply put, this would not be a popular plan either in America or in the Palestinian territories.
We are finally putting America first. Our policy of never...
Totally. I love putting America first.
Ending war, regime change and nation building is being replaced by the clear-eyed pursuit of American interests. We do not seek nation building. We're going to end the era of nation building, a disastrous concept, a disastrous era. Why are we nation building over there? We want a nation build over here.
When President Donald Trump first entered politics nearly a decade ago, he did so with promises of putting an end to nation building and removing the U.S. from foreign entanglements in the Middle East. But now he's, of course, said that he has a new plan to redevelop the Gaza Strip, or as his Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, put it, quote, make Gaza beautiful again. Rubio clarifying some of the details of the president's proposal yesterday.
The only thing President Trump has done very generously, in my view, is offer the United States willingness to step in, clear the debris, clean the place up.
As the Israel's defense minister readies its military for the, quote, voluntary departure, end quote, of Palestinians from Gaza, one thing that's clear, President Trump and his plan have the full support of his Israeli counterpart, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
This is the first good idea that I've heard. It's a remarkable idea, and I think it should be really pursued, examined, pursued, and done, because I think it will create a different future for everyone. He's the greatest friend that Israel has ever had in the White House.
All right, joining us now, former Chief of Staff to Benjamin Netanyahu, George Birnbaum. Sir, good morning. Thank you very much for spending some time with us today.
Good morning, Casey.
I'd like to start with the meeting itself, and especially the look on the Prime Minister's face there, as well as some reporting that he was as surprised by this as almost anyone. The New York Times wrote this, quote, it wasn't only the Americans who were scrambling after the press conference. The announcement came just as much of a surprise to Mr. Trump's Israeli visitors. Soon before they walked out for their joint news conference on Tuesday, Mr. Trump surprised Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel by telling him he planned to announce the Gaza ownership idea, according to two people briefed on their interactions. You've obviously worked closely with Netanyahu. What did you read into his reaction, and how surprised was he?
Well, I would say this. Netanyahu is a very astute follower of political chess. And we saw a few announcements prior to the prime minister's arrival that were a little strange. One was the announcement that the King of Jordan would be coming to visit the White House in a couple of weeks. And while, with all respect to the King of Jordan, I could think of 24 world leaders that the president...
Trump doesn't care about polls anymore, and why would he? He has no more elections and doesn't care about the GOP. Hitler was also an anti-war candidate, and a lot of policies were initially unpopular. No, Trump cares about popularity. You're wrong about that. I think he is, for selfish reasons, for narcissistic reasons, but reasons nonetheless, Donald Trump absolutely cares about being popular. In a very weird way, it has nothing to do with the election. I don't even think Donald Trump cared about winning the election the first time around. He just kind of lucked into it. And then the second time around, he had to do it out of desperation because he was worried about going to jail. He literally said he wanted to ban TikTok in his first term. And then now is known as the savior of TikTok. Why do you think that happened? You're such a leftist joke. Leftists don't joke, my friend. Yeah, how can you live through a decade of Donald Trump in politics and arrive at the conclusion I don't think he really cares about polling? I will say this much. Yeah, also, this dude has cuck in his name, which is kind of funny. I will say this much. I think Donald Trump, in a weird way, cares more about broad popularity and polling than like the average technocratic Democrat does. Now, having said that, are there things that he does that are deeply unpopular? Abso-frickin-lutely, right? I'll give you one great example of this. Donald Trump's reaction to the abortion ban once Roe v. Wade was overturned by his Supreme Court was very different than the way he was advocating for it beforehand. If given the opportunity, I'm fairly certain he would not have ever allowed that to happen. It's even more sinister that CNN has been talking about this nonstop for the past couple of days while they were dead silent when Israel was openly committing genocide and war crimes in Gaza. Yeah, because, you know, anti-Trump hits get clicks. Anyway, what I was saying is he cares about popularity, but he'll say deeply unpopular things. especially when there's money to be made for himself or others. He'll still try to present it as the popular option, though.
Would invite to the White House prior to the King of Jordan. We also saw the announcement of Egypt just a day prior to the prime minister arriving. Of course, Egypt and Jordan being two key players in President Trump's plan. So the prime minister may have been surprised that the announcement came so quickly, but I believe that he probably was reading the tea leaves a little bit, and that President Trump did have something in mind by having these two very strange events occur so early into his presidency regarding the invitation of the King of Jordan as well as the arms sale to Egypt.
President Trump's Gaza plan is also upsetting some of the Arab Americans who voted for him. A number of those voters are in Dearborn, Michigan, the city with the highest percentage of Arab Americans in the U.S. They flipped to Trump in 2024, partly to protest President Biden's handling of the crisis in Gaza. Nikki Batiste asked people there how they are feeling now.
What do you think your headline will be this week?
Gazans will not leave their country.
I think something that, yes, I hear the buzzing too, or the tinnitus noise. I think something that American leadership discounts, which is leading them to make wrong decisions when figuring out how to go forward with this Gaza situation, is how unimaginably unpopular it would be with the actual citizens in these countries. If it were up to MBS and he had full control, if he had a magic wand, he would make all of the Palestinians perish. But the reason why the official Saudi position is that it is a non-starter to do mass ethnic displacement for the Palestinians. The reason why that is the official Saudi position, despite MBS's own personal distaste for the Palestinian plight, is because even in a place like Saudi Arabia, where the numbers of the population are very limited, no matter how many weapons you give MBS, he still has a very real fear of being potentially overthrown by his own population. Okay? Same with Egypt. If MBS were to basically say, I don't really care, go ahead, we're normalizing with Israel, okay? There's a likelihood that he'd get assassinated by an immediate family member even. MBS doesn't have an election to win? Yes. In countries where they don't have American-style theoretical democracy, they do things a little differently, okay? This is one of those issues where enough members of the public would absolutely make a big enough stink and try to actively overthrow their rulers. Okay, do you understand? They just kind of killed the leaders, Lamau. Just look at Sadat in Egypt as an example. I'm saying that authoritarian countries have more to fear from genuine rebellion than democratic countries do, because a theoretical democracy offers an opportunity, even if it's just simply the feeling of having political power in the form of your vote. It gives you a pressure valve. Authoritarian countries fear rebellion more than democratic countries do. Okay? That's where it actually happens. When there is no alternative in the eyes of the population, and the government takes action that is so disastrous, so immoral, so repugnant that they can't stand idly by, they will revolt. The only way to maintain a docile population in an authoritarian country, because there is always a limit to how long authoritarian regimes can exist. The only way to continue operating with mechanisms of control is if you're constantly abiding by the best wishes and the broader public sentiment. They underestimate the prevalence of pan-Arab sentiment in the MENA region. My grandpa was a Saudi general who tried to coup the royals with the first set of normalization in the 70s, failed, obviously, lol. Anyway.
Thomas Sablani's Arab American newspaper has shared the stories of the country's largest Arab community for 40 years.
We have expected from Donald Trump the worst, but he is shocking us of how worse he can be.
Here in Dearborn, Michigan, the Democrat usually wins. But last November, President Trump captured more than 40% of the vote to Vice President Harris's 36%. Part of her loss was due to people not voting for either major party. Sablani says he didn't vote for anyone, but blames Democratic candidates for the rare results.
The vote for...
I will never get over how easy it would have been for Biden to actually reverse course on Gaza. One phone call, proven by Steve Witkoff, going and telling Benjamin Netanyahu to cut it out, and then Benjamin Netanyahu actually cutting it out. And yet he chose not to do so, even though there was a severe electoral consequence there. It's crazy. Remember when Joe Biden said he had a red line when Israel decided to do the complete final solution on North Gaza with the hopes of permanent annexation of North Gaza? Biden said, "Oh, I'm going to give you a red line, Jack." He gave another red line at Rafah. We all know how that turned out. But the second time was even funnier because he gave him 30 days, which was after the election. And then, of course, he did not abide by the red line. Israel never followed through, and Biden kept giving him more weapons and rewarding him all the way till the last day. His State Department ran propaganda for Israel. I did not forget. If they were truly worried about Donald Trump fucking up the situation, if they truly cared about the plight of Gazans, they could have wrapped this shit up ever before it reached Trump's desk. Okay? They handed over the reins to Donald Trump with no care or consideration for Palestinians whatsoever because they don't care. It's that simple. There's no reason to dance around this issue. And many liberals are pretty open. I was told by a prominent liberal streamer today that the Rafah red line was an example of Biden saving the day, giving people time to leave Rafah. Oh my God. This doesn't make sense even in like their own moral system. Okay, even in the world that they've invented where Biden somehow has the power to halt this, give a stay of execution, but also can't stop the execution in its entirety. You know what I mean? It's just so crazy. It's just wrong. I don't know how else to describe it other than purely wrong, you know? I think a lot of liberals, just like a lot of Republicans do, they just want to hear someone with similar opinions, you know? They just want someone to whisper sweet nothing into their ears. They want basically to feel like they're morally righteous, even when all signs point to the fact that they're not. And they want to do that by doing the bare minimum, which is going out and voting. They think it's the most, it is the most moral position. It's the highest form of political activism that one can partake in. It's the first step. Kaya. They didn't care if they lose either, as long as they can profit off campaigning against Trump. They're earning money anyway.
For Trump was not really a vote for Trump. It's a vote against the Biden-Harris administration because they could not stop the carnage that's happening in Gaza.
If you were to give President Trump a grade for how he's handling Gaza, Middle East, what would it be?
I would say like a C+.
College senior Sarah Shaban voted for Trump. She says she gasped when she saw his remarks.
Insane to yap for hours about how much genocide Joe sucks when we can't change the past, but you can say I told you so. Meanwhile, Trump just called for ethnic cleansing and there's still shit that can be done to stop him. I mean, there's even less shit that can be done to stop Donald Trump than there was for Biden. So no, I think covering Biden's ineptitude on this issue is still fairly important to understand. You know what I mean? Like this was happening during an election, man. There is no clearer indication that America does not give a single shred of a fuck about democracy than not responding to the public pressure, major demonstrations, and only responding by telling everybody that they were Hamas supporters and that they were maybe being funded by Iran, and then also prosecuting 100 college campus demonstrators. Like, that is crazy. Those numbers are insane. They rarely got coverage in the media, but I have not forgotten, and neither should you. A couple of years from now, when you wonder how we got here, remember that the Democrats also were actively pushing to get here. My favorite thing about this whole situation as a Palestinian is that the party collectively told me and all of mine to go fuck ourselves nonstop, ran a dog shit campaign where they told us that they were going to win without us. and we didn't matter. And now turn around and reveal the Klan hoods they had hidden the entire time. I mean, did they hide the Klan hoods? They literally said, we'll win without you. And also that we're going to keep killing your relatives. So one could say that they were wearing the Klan hoods all along pretty openly. Now they just try to act like they weren't wearing the Klan hoods, but now you forced me to wear the Klan hood, when in fact they were wearing it last time around too, you know? They were always wearing it. Now they're saying, now you done did it. You forced my hand. You got what you wished for. And it's like, well, you didn't. You were fine with this happening when you were in charge. And now that you're out of power, you're still fine with it. Nothing really changed. I don't know why you also want this kind of like moral abdication. You want to be freed. You want to feel like you did your very best when we saw you not doing that.
I was disappointed, but I also wasn't surprised. But I would say that I kind of find it hard to believe that he would actually implement what he's saying.
Did you regret voting for him?
A little bit, yeah. But then I thought about it, and I was like, there's a ceasefire now, and I wasn't sure there was going to be a ceasefire if Kamala was elected.
Trump became the first Republican presidential candidate to win this city in more than 2 decades.
Amichai Stein, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu to Channel 14. The Saudis can create a Palestinian state in Saudi Arabia. They have lots of land over there. I guess the Saudi normalization is not looking too good. What's your prediction? Do you think Trump will follow this at all? I mean, there's no reason to assume that Donald Trump is not going to actively try to do what he promised that he's going to do. Think about it. Think about it. With respect to virtually everything. It was like, oh, Project 2025. Oh, that's not real. I don't know what that is. I don't know how to read. And then they fucking turn around. And then they turn around and they're like, okay, we're doing Project 2025 to a T. We're doing exactly the things that were in Project 2025. When they say they're going to do something, it's a matter of how much resistance will undermine their goals. That's it.
Decades. Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, who represents Dearborn and is the only Palestinian American in Congress, blasted Trump's comments and said Palestinians aren't going anywhere. Vlad?
All right, Nikki, thank you very much.
Across the country today, demonstrators took to the streets, part of a movement billed as 50 protests.
God. I don't know what's wrong with my goddamn computer, dude. It is so busted. My pooter. I am aware that my camera is really far up. Why are chatters so brain dead to this reality? A solid 5,000 kids probably got blown off when Joe dropped out and Kamala ran on the Democratic ticket. He looks like the peaceful guy, even though he's not to the normies across the nation. Kamala and DNC fucked up the easiest presidential layup of all time. Didn't they find metadata from Project 2025 author on recent files from the White House? Yeah, I mean, it is a part of the same organizing unit, okay? It is the same body. There is no difference functionally between Project 2025 and the Republican Party's agenda. It is one of the same. And it always has been. And it's not new. It's not a new project. Yeah, Project 2025's co-author was just confirmed by the Senate as OMB head, was the tweet. Yeah, that's it. Here it is. Senate confirms Project 2025 architect to head the Office of Management and Budget.